Justin Schaefer, Justin Schaefer.
Okay, thank you. Mr. DeMora, direct exam.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Schaefer.
Morning.
Mr. Schaefer, I want to take you back to May 3rd of 2023. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so I want to get a little bit of background before I jump into some of the substance of what we're going to be talking about today. On May 3rd of 2023, were you living in the city of Davis?
Yes.
Were you aware of a series of stabbings that had taken place?
I was.
Right. You, like many other people, had heard about it, probably watched the news, and were acutely aware.
Mm-hmm.
And so, sorry, we got a yes?
That's a yes.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll answer yes.
Yeses and no's.
Yes.
That's okay. So, leading up to May 3rd of 2023, how much were you keeping track of the stabbings that were taking place?
I was keeping, I was very aware of what was going on.
So,
My wife was as well. She was constantly informing me about what was happening.
and why was that?
She was concerned. We have 2 small kids, and this was the talk of the town, as most people know.
And were you concerned as well?
Yeah.
And without giving your address, where were you living at the time?
I was off of Sycamore, between Sycamore Park and Redwood Park.
And are you familiar with Sycamore Park itself, the actual?
Yeah, I take my kids there all the time.
At the time, on May 3rd, in sort of the late afternoon, were you headed to Sycamore Park?
I had walked through. I don't remember exactly what time it was. I had a phone interview for a job I was applying for, and I do better when I'm walking and talking. So I told my wife I was going for a walk, and she warned me against it, but I said, I'm just going to go. We can't live in fear. So I walked through the park. I don't know, maybe it was around 1:30 or 2 p.m. I'm not sure. There's a bicycle bridge that crosses the 113 right by the park. So I went across the bridge to Arroyo Park, then walked back through Sycamore Park, and that was, you have the better timeline than I do. It was in the late afternoon, and that's when I, yeah.
Okay, so
that's when I was there.
So I'll stop you right there. When you were crossing, you're walking and you've been keeping up to date with all the stuff that's happening in Davis. Have you been aware of a description of a potential suspect that had been put out by law enforcement?
Yes, I was aware, and my wife had also repeated it to me several times.
Okay, so what was, in your mind, what was the description of the person that was believed to be involved in these stabbings?
It was a young man, pale skin, dark hair, dark clothing, I think all black, and then Adidas slip-ons.
When you say slip-ons, you're talking about the slides? Like
yeah, and maybe Adidas track pants too. I'm not exactly sure.
So as you're crossing, you said you crossed over into Arroyo Park, and that's in West Davis.
Correct.
So did you use a footbridge that goes across 113?
I used the footbridge both times, yes.
When you came back across the footbridge from West Davis into Sycamore Park, did you see anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, I was on the phone again, but I was walking through the park area. There's the path there diverges, and I took the path that goes closer to the playground. Again, that's a playground that I've taken my kids to many times. And I looked up in the playground equipment. I don't know how to describe it exactly. And there was somebody sitting on the stairs that at the time we were probably 30 or 40 feet away from each other, so I was able to see quite clearly, and the person matched the suspect's description to a T, and that's what I encountered.
Okay. When you say matched to a T, what did you see?
Exactly what everyone had been describing: dark clothing, dark hair, pale complexion. Adidas. It must have been Adidas pants because I saw them clearly, and not the slides necessarily. And yeah, that was it.
And what was, when you first observed this person, what were they doing?
Just sitting there looking down.
Anything, and we say sitting there looking, let me step back. Was this a male?
From my observation, yes.
And what was he sitting on?
It's perhaps a little hard to describe, but there's an elevated area in the playground equipment, and then there's some stairs that go up to dual slides that go in either direction, and he was sitting on those stairs.
Could you see anything in his hands or anything that was with him?
No, I didn't spend too much time looking. I initially did a glance and then a double take, and then had a kind of a terror response. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is perhaps that person." And so I initially backed off, but I didn't see any. I didn't see anything in his hands.
When you say you initially backed off, what do you mean?
Well, he was looking down at the time, and so I did that double take, and maybe it was obvious that I was doing a double take. Again, we weren't that far away. So then he looked up and started to approach me, or at least get up, like stand up from the stairs. And that was my fight or flight response, perhaps. Like, all the things that can run through your head in a millisecond in such an environment. So I like backed away. Like, even though there was a 30-foot or so buffer between us, I still created more distance. He proceeded down the stairs and down the playground equipment, and I backed further away, kind of keeping a distance between us. I had at that point told the people I was on the phone with that I needed to go, and I believe I called the police right away.
So let's break that up.
Yeah.
And a couple questions. So when you do your double take, do the two of you make eye contact? Like, you see him and you can tell that he sees you?
Yeah, he looked up. We made brief eye contact.
And when you say brief, who broke eye contact?
I probably did, because I started to turn and kind of run initially. It was not my bravest moment.
You were concerned based on what you had heard and what you knew.
Yeah, I just connected all of the dots. Like, wow, this is somebody that matches the suspect to a T. This is where one of the murders had occurred. And then he was getting up and coming towards me at initially what felt like a rapid pace. Again, I was probably a bit on edge, and therefore just didn't want to take any chances and backed off.
And when you said it felt like he was coming towards you at a rapid pace, looking back on it, was he walking? Was he running?
He was walking. There was no lunging or sprinting at me or anything like that. Just he got up and came towards me initially, and that's when I kind of did that backing off. He proceeded down the playground equipment. There's another set of stairs. He walked down them, but then he didn't come towards me. I was, at that point, I believe, on the phone. I called the police pretty immediately, and he started to walk the other way.
Okay, so what direction did you go?
West towards the footbridge, but then it was a meandering path. He didn't stay on the paved walkway / bikeway there. He headed west again towards the footbridge, but then went up. There's a little hill with a few trees on it, and he went up that way, just kind of walking, almost meandering. It was somewhat strange behavior. I had the impression he was either trying to look unsuspicious at that point, or was simply trying to get away from me or keep distance from me, get me off of his path. It's
Sustained.
In watching your observations, while you're observing this individual, and you said meandering, you hadn't seen this type of movement prior to the two of you sort of making eye contact, right?
No, prior to making eye contact, he was sitting there, looking downward towards the ground.
And, a question that I have, you said you had walked through the park, previously gone over the footbridge, and come back. How much time had passed from the time you initially went through Sycamore Park to the time you came back, if you remember?
I'd say 45 minutes to an hour. And I didn't notice anything on the way there, but I was pretty focused on the phone interview that I was on.
That's fair, because you want to get that job. So, you're watching him, individual meander. Do you stay in the area? Do you follow him? What do you do?
I called the police and let them know. They said they would send someone over, but I stayed and followed him, or at least stayed on his trail, because at that point Davis had been in like lockdown for several days. Again, I have two little boys I wanted to be able to take to the park again, and I was like, we just gotta, if this is him, we gotta figure this thing out. So I stayed on his trail.
And so you seem very calm, and the way you're describing this seemed very calm, but were you stressed out by what you were witnessing in the position you were in?
Possibly stressed out in the sense that my cortisol levels were higher, maybe, but I also felt fairly determined that, again, if this, what my thinking at the time was, this is either the suspect or this is somebody with severe mental health issues who needs help anyway, because why would you dress up like the suspect and sit in the area where I believe the second murder had occurred? So my thinking was simply like, this person needs help, this community needs help, and I'm just going to stay on this until it's resolved one way or another, until we have clarity.
All right, so you were in the fight mode now. Let's do something. Objection leading.
I was in the let's satisfy the curiosity mode. Like, we need to know if this is the suspect or not. And again, I was unemployed at the time, so I had the afternoon free. I was like, I've got nothing better to do. I'm going to stay on this person and figure this out.
Okay. So, as you're on the phone, do you decide, make the determination that you are going to follow this individual till police arrive or something else happens?
That was my determination, yeah. I believe I told the police that. I ended up calling the police altogether 3 times. I'm sure you have the records of that. After I had called the police, I called my wife and said that I was in the park and I believed I had found the suspect and was following him. She was, of course, concerned, but she also said, like, well, yeah, do that, because she similarly was tired of the panicked state of the community.
So you get your wife's blessing, basically, kind of, to continue doing what you're doing. So take us through what you did in the next steps.
Yeah, so I followed him over the hill. We kept a similar distance, or I kept a similar distance the entire time. I would say I extended the distance after the initial playground encounter, so there were probably, 100 feet between us at least at that point. But I walked up the hill, again, the embankment that is there alongside 113. There's a fence that keeps people from going onto 113. And so I walked up that hill and saw him going down in the fenced area, then walking towards the bicycle path. There were actually kids riding by on their bikes. I remember saying that to the police at the time. So he walked then to the other side of to the corner of the park, effectively, like not going down the bicycle path, but then into this corner. It made no sense to me because there was nowhere to go. It was just like kind of ambling about.
Okay, and I'll stop you right there for a second.
Sure.
As you're following and you're watching his movements, at any point does he turn around and look at you?
I didn't get that distinct impression. It was no. Just kind of looking at the ground, looking around. It was strange behavior. It wasn't like fleeing from me, like obviously recognizing that I was on his tail and therefore trying to get away. but it also wasn't sensible movement. There was no destination seemingly in mind.
Mayor Bergeron?
Okay.
And Mr. Schaefer, I'm showing you People's Exhibits 65 and 66. All right, 65 first, and do you recognize that?
Yeah, it's an aerial view of Sycamore Park.
And is that a fair and accurate depiction of Sycamore Park as it exists now and back on May 3rd, 2023?
Yes,
Right? As you've described, you're familiar with that area, right?
I am.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you 66, People 66. And is that also a Google image without the Earth view of Sycamore Park and part of North Davis?
It is, yes.
Or North and West Davis, I should say. And you're familiar with this area as well?
Yes.
Okay, and that fairly and accurately depicts that area back in May of 2023 as well as present.
It does.
All right, so let's start with People 65. I'm actually going to put this down there for you.
Sure.
I believe there's some markers right here for you. All right, so to start with, if you could mark on that exhibit with a 1 to show the first place you saw Mr. Dominguez, or excuse me, the person that you identified as being the suspect. I'm acting in the church, I should say. On that, the person you saw that day, what was the closest point you got to seeing that?
I would estimate 30 feet or so.
Did you get a good look at his face?
Yeah.
You see him in court today.
Yes.
Can you point to him and describe what he's wearing?
He's wearing a brown suit with a yellow tie.
Okay, off to your right, my left.
Off to my right, your left.
There we go. All right. May the record reflect, Mr. Schaefer is identified as the defendant.
It does.
And so that would be, let's see, first place you saw him right here, you marked with a 1. Great. And now, what I want you to do, taking a different color marker, we'll go with red, is if you could draw the path that you sort of followed Mr. Dominguez at the time. And I want to preface this with another question, is at some point you guys both left the park, right?
That's right.
Right. So at least on this diagram, or People 65, if you could draw the route that you followed him until you leave Sycamore Park, if you could. And as you're doing that, if you could narrate for us what you're doing.
Sure.
Objection, they want his route or Mr. Morales Dominguez's route?
Sustained.
Let me rephrase. Let's start with, let me rephrase this. When Mr. Dominguez was walking and you started to follow him, did you sort of follow the same path that he was taking just from distance?
I did until he started to come in my direction, and then I separated myself and went out the park on a northbound route up Sycamore slightly, and he went down Sycamore, and then I followed him south on Sycamore.
Okay, so let's do it this way. Let's mark on there his route to the best of your recollection.
Sure. I'm going to trace it here. So he got up from the playground equipment, walked westbound through the trees, up the hill, and then down into this, I don't know if embankment is the right word for it, but I'm going to call it that, and sort of meandered about, crossed the bike path perpendicularly, but didn't go down the bike path. Again, kids were biking past in either direction, I believe. Kind of milled about in the tree area, and then headed back in a eastbound direction. That's when I started to double back the other way. He went down, there's a curved path that goes through Sycamore Park. He went down that way. I was on the hill and then went again northbound on Sycamore a little bit just to keep distance. And I was probably trying to act covertly, but I wasn't doing so very well. Then he went down Sycamore. He got to the intersection. He was walking, I guess that would have been east of Willett Elementary School. He went down just past Bucknell and then doubled back and went, at that point, east on Bucknell. At which point the map runs out and I would have to switch to the other exhibit.
Okay, so let's start with that one. Come back and grab that from you.
Sure.
And permission to publish, Your Honor?
Okay.
All right, so for the jury, when you started drawing, you drew this one right here for where you first saw Mr. Dominguez,
Yes.
and then the red trail coming from there, and this is the path you traced all the way down to Bucknell, sort of the bottom half of the right side of the page.
Yes.
Okay. How long did you follow or watch Mr. Dominguez in Sycamore Park before hitting Sycamore Lane?
It couldn't have been too long. I would say a few minutes. Altogether, I think the pursuit, or for lack of a better word, was maybe 45 minutes, and this was just the first part of it in the park.
You continued to follow him for a long period of time afterwards,
I-
or a distance afterwards.
Yeah, this is the neighborhood I live in, so I was at that point even more invested in closure. So I followed him and I called the neighbors and kind of tried to coordinate a response.
And so on that, you said this morning that you called your wife and you called 911. When you were calling, or when you placed those calls, were you trying to convey, or were you trying to tell them what was happening as it was happening?
Certainly, yes.
So on People's 31D, and these are the 911 calls, Your Honor, with transcripts.
Okay. And so, yeah, we had talked about this, so let's revisit briefly.
Right.
Thank you, off the record. Okay, so to the jury, I just need to visit with the lawyer. I appreciate the lawyer's professionalism sorting out the evidentiary issues and with direct exam.
And so now that we, Mr. Schaefer, now that we have part one of the map, we're going to move to part two. So the same instruction is, once we move on to Bucknell, can you trace and narrate while you're doing so Mr. Dominguez's movements?
Yes, I can. So he continued to head east on Bucknell. I was following from a longer distance at that point. I'd probably say at least 100 feet, if not more. He came.
Stop you right there for a second. Is there a reason why you followed from an increased distance?
Again, I was attempting to be somewhat covert. I wasn't sure he knew I was following him, and I didn't want to spook him.
All right, continue.
I called. We have a neighbor who lives at the corner of Bucknell and Pine. I called her. I don't think she answered, but he walked right in front of her house. Then he headed north on Pine, though he did hesitate at the corner of Bucknell and Pine, like he was going to go south on Pine. And then he again doubled back the other way. So something that I found to be strange behavior. He then got to the corner of Villanova and Pine and started to head east on Villanova before then going back and heading west on Villanova. During that time, as I was heading north on Pine, I called our neighbor who lives at Colby and Sycamore and asked her to get in her car and help me follow him, or at least confirm that I wasn't crazy, because I was like, if this is not the suspect, I'm just a middle-aged man following a kid around the town, which is probably weird. So she got in her car and drove up Sycamore as he was going north on Sycamore and confirmed to me that, like, yeah, this seems suspect. Like, this is the exact match of the suspect. So he continued north. I was pursuing, but I would kind of like go slowly and then sprint around the corner as soon as I was out of line of sight. We got up eventually to the intersection. He crossed the street from the east side to the west side on Sycamore. I was on the east side. So he got up to the intersection there, and I don't know if he waited for the light to switch. I seem to recall he didn't, but he was just trying to move. I waited for the light, and I was on the east side of that intersection. So he crossed north into the Safeway Plaza, and at that point, I lost him in the parking lot because I was, again, at least 100 feet, if not more, behind. I went into CVS and ran up and down all of the aisles of the store, didn't see him anywhere. I thought I had lost him entirely. I think I called my wife to say, like, damn, I lost him. And I was actually at that point that he came out of Safeway and walked right in front of me. At that point, I saw he was holding a bag, like a nylon or polyester string bag. I don't know exactly what those are called, those lightweight ones. Then I called the police for what I believe was the third time and said, there's no way I'm letting him out of my sight now. Please send people immediately. He headed south, back down Sycamore, heading towards the direction where we had come from. I flagged down some women in a car and asked them to help me keep an eye on him, and said, like, this is the guy. So they started to follow him. And then shortly after that, we got all the way back down to Villanova. He crossed the street, and a squad car, a police car, I think Davis Police, was coming my way on Villanova, in other words, heading westbound, and I ran into the street, flagged them down, and pointed them in his direction, at which point they tried to stop him there, but he actually kept going, and it was not until they got to the corner of Colby and Pine where the pursuit ended.
And so you followed Mr. Dominguez until the police actually approached him and started talking to him at that point?
Yes.
So let me, there are three, you did it. Let's see. How about with this blue pen, if you could just draw where you started with a little arrow to show your path out, and then little arrows to show your path back. Just to make
Sure. Where it started in the first place, or where it started on Bucknell?
Where it started on this map itself.
Sure. Yeah. And then to indicate where it ended.
Go with just a blue X.
Okay. This is the police first approached him on Villanova, and then he kept going until Colby.
Okay, so that area that police first saw him, or you first saw the police talk to him, why don't you just put police right there?
Sure.
Thank you. When Mr. Dominguez came out of Safeway, how close was he to you?
It felt like he walked right in front of me because I was in that like forlorn, damn, I lost him moment, and then all of a sudden he was right there. So I would guess 20 to 30 feet again.
Did the two of you look at each other again?
No, he'd walked past. I don't think he saw me. I came out of CVS, and he was coming from Safeway.
And was it the first moment you noticed he had a bag with him?
That's when I noticed the bag, yeah. That was the closest I had been.
Prior to that, would you say you may have been too far away to see what was in his hands?
Yeah.
At any point did the two of you talk or exchange words?
Not at all.
What was the street the intersection you said where he may have gone through or may have crossed against the light, or he may have said there, you can remember?
That was West Covell and Sycamore.
Oh, and one thing to clarify, when you first saw him at Sycamore Park, you said you weren't able to recall exactly what time it was that you first saw him?
I believe it was somewhere around 3 p.m., but I don't recall with exactitude.
All right, and if I show you a copy of the police report of the statement you gave to officers, do you think that would refresh your recollection?
Absolutely.
May I approach her?
Okay.
How good are you with military time?
My phone is in military time.
Okay, perfect. So if you want to look at those first two lines and let me know if that refreshes your recollection.
Yeah, around 3:30. That would make sense. Anything else you want me to look at on here?
Oh, nope, that's it. So it's around 3:28 p.m. on May 3rd, 2023. Seemed like the time that you first saw Mr. Dominguez in Sycamore Park.
Yeah, the best record would be my first phone call to the police because I called them almost immediately after seeing him. So that would be what I would rely on if I were trying to evaluate it, but 3:28 sounds fine to me.
Sounds fine or sounds accurate?
Sounds accurate.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Demora. That was direct examination. Mr. Hutchinson Cross.
Good afternoon, Mr. Schaefer. My name is Dan Hutchinson. Thank you for being here today. So without telling us your specific street or address, you live within 2 blocks of Sycamore Park?
Yeah,
So you're very familiar with that park?
I go there all the time.
And you were familiar with the stabbings that had occurred in Davis?
Yes.
Prior to that date?
That's right.
You knew there had been a stabbing at Sycamore Park?
Yes.
And you heard about the general description of the suspect from that second stabbing?
Yes.
And your wife was following this very closely as well?
She was following it much more closely than I was, yes.
Because you had 2 young children?
Yes.
How old were your children at the time?
At the time, they were 2 and 3.
Would you take your children to Sycamore Park?
Not during that period I hadn't been, but prior to that, absolutely.
So prior to the stabbing, that park was a place you would take your children?
We were often there, yes.
And you were aware of the third stabbing that had happened down on area of 2nd and L Street in Davis?
Yes.
And there was a much more detailed description that came out after that one.
Yes.
Did you actually see any photos or only the description?
I don't recall seeing any photos, just the description.
A young man,
Yes.
dark curly hair,
Yes.
wearing a black hoodie,
Yep.
olive complexion skin,
The description or the person I saw?
description,
The description, yes. I think they said darker skinned or something like that.
and Adidas track pants.
Adidas track pants. There you
And
go.
by track pants, you knew that to be the ones with the kind of stripes going down the side.
Yes.
So because you had this interview, you wanted to go out for a walk.
Yes.
Your wife didn't want you to go.
She warned me against it. Yes.
But would it be fair to assume that you did not believe that whoever did these crimes would be at Sycamore Park in 3 in the afternoon in the middle of the day? That seemed unlikely to you.
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
I didn't expect it. My wife, as I was walking out the door, said, "What if you see him?" And I was like, I kind of just brushed her off and went for a walk. It was
You
a
did
nice
not
day.
expect whoever committed these crimes would be at Sycamore Park at 3 in the afternoon in broad daylight. That was not a concern for you at that point.
It seemed unlikely to me. I knew the suspect was on the run, but I assumed was trying to maintain a low profile and wouldn't simply return to one of the places where a stabbing had occurred and sit there in open daylight.
And so you walked to Sycamore Park and you took the bike. Did you take the bike path down to this bridge, or did you cut through the other path that goes through the center of the park?
On the way through, as I was heading westbound over to Arroyo Park, I took the circular path through, not the bike path.
But you're familiar with the bike path.
I am.
You walked it before.
I have.
And by circular, there's another path that goes kind of through the center of the park and can connect with the bike path.
Yes.
It connects near the play area.
Correct.
And if I were to show you some photos, could you review them and see, with the exception of maybe a bicycle or something being there, if these are accurate photos of how the park looked back in May of 2023?
Yes, I believe I can.
I'm going to show him its Defense Exhibit C. There's 19 photos identified as C1 through C19.
Okay.
Sir, if you could just scroll through, you can do a little arrow on the side. Take a look at all 19 photos and tell. And if there's anyone that doesn't seem accurate to you, note that number.
Okay. Do you want me to narrate the photos as I'm doing it? Just scroll through and note inaccuracies.
Yes, if there's any photo that you think doesn't look as the area did in May of 2023.
Well, on C2, there's now a memorial, which wasn't there at the time, of course. Same with C5. The rest of these look like Sycamore Park looks like today and looked like in May 2023.
took the circular route through, not the circular, but the center path through the park on your way crossing the footbridge.
Yes.
And you did not see anyone, and did you go directly through the park?
I went through the park. Yeah, there's that confluence of the paths. I went there and then across the footbridge westbound.
So,
I didn't see anyone, but again, I was at the outset of an interview and I was pretty much focused on the person I was speaking to. I wasn't really paying attention to my surroundings.
other than seeing an item in C2 and C5, which you said was not there in May of 2023, is everything else the same?
Everything else is more or less the same, yes.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
Okay.
Plug that. So, show me what's been marked C1. This is from Sycamore Lane. It shows the entry to the bike path.
Yes.
And this is C2. This is actually on the bike path facing west.
Correct.
And this item up here was not there in May of 23.
Yes.
Looking at C3, now you are still on the bike path and you see it branches off to the left and there is a play structure.
Yes.
Now I'm going to C4. Now this is a image. We're now looking east from Sycamore Park, and that shows the other kind of middle path that you took.
That I took on my way westbound through the
Yes.
park the initial time, yes.
But this photo is looking actually eastbound. You can see
Correct.
Sycamore Lane over here.
Yes.
And looking marked to C5, once again, this is the middle path that you took on your initial route through Sycamore Park.
Yes.
And here again is another view of that middle path, and we're facing, again, east.
We're facing east in this case, yes.
So the person taking this photo, the play structure behind them.
Yes.
Going back, I'm going to go to C8. This is back on the bike path, and we're facing west.
Facing west, yes.
And at the very end, if I zoom in, you can see the bridge that crosses 113.
Yes.
And you see where the little hand is right there?
Yes.
Okay. That goes off to the left. There's the path that goes down to the play structures.
Yeah.
Back up. And here I'm going down to C7. We're again on the bike path facing west.
Yeah, now southwest. West-southwest, yes.
Very precise.
Just want to get it right. But yeah, that's the path that turns to the play structure right there that you're referring to.
So if you're walking along the bike path, you can get to here, you can turn down into the play structure, turn left into the play structure area, or you can continue straight through to the overpass.
Yes.
And the route that you took through Sycamore Park, that leads into this pathway here, and you can connect with the bike path.
Yep, that's what I did.
And that's what you did on your way through.
Yes.
And C9, this is the bike path facing westbound before you cross 113.
Yes.
Now, C10, this appears to have been the play structure from someone who's now crossed back over from 113, and you're seeing the play structure off to your right.
Yes, the bike path would be behind this person now.
Do you see in this photo where Mr. Dominguez was seated when you first noticed him?
Yes.
Okay, let me zoom in. Tell me if I should zoom in some more.
I've got my magnifying glasses, literally.
This is a defense exhibit C10. Do you see where he was seated?
Yes, it's slightly obscured by the yellow grates, but it was up the first stairs, and then there's actually a second set of stairs on that elevated platform.
There's a black
Oh,
highlighter there with
sure.
a button.
It's right there.
So, by a set of stairs, you see where the little cursor is here.
Yeah.
There's a set of blue stairs. If one goes up the stairs, there's another short set of stairs,
Yes, I believe it's 2 or 3 stairs.
and that was where you saw Mr. Dominguez seated.
He was seated there, yes.
Where were you in relation? Does this photo show where you were when you first saw him?
Right there.
So you're walking along, you're going toward, I guess you're taking the middle path back home.
I was heading back home, exactly.
And the middle path, you would have turned left and followed the middle path through the park.
Yes,
But you look to your right and you see him.
yes,
And you see a young man with black curly hair.
yeah. Initially, he was looking down, so it was just hair draped over his face. And then, as I stopped, I probably wasn't very subtle about it, and he looked up, and we made eye contact.
Let's talk about when you first, obviously there's multiple people in Davis who have black curly hair.
Totally.
You weren't about to go follow every person in Davis just because they had black curly hair.
No, no.
So let's talk about what you saw. You knew that the description was someone wearing a black hoodie,
Yeah.
and this person had a black hoodie.
Yes, or at least a black top.
And you also knew that description was black Adidas track pants.
Yes,
This person was wearing black Adidas track pants.
yes.
And this, you believe the description was something of a darker skin?
The description that I had heard was darker skin, yes.
Did this individual appear to have maybe an olive complexion,
No,
light complexion?
light pale.
But other than that, it was basically a complete match for the description that you received.
It was.
And you also knew that this was the scene of the location of the second stabbing.
Yes,
So you were not expecting to see someone matching the description perfectly at the scene of the second stabbing.
I was not at all.
So this is on the afternoon of May 3rd, and you knew the third stabbing had happened the evening of May 1st.
Yes,
And this person appeared to be wearing the exact same clothes, at least based on the description.
yes,
And you testified earlier, it crossed your mind that this may be a mentally ill person dressing up like the description that had gone over the media.
My thinking was anybody who's dressed just like the suspect near where one of the stabbings had occurred, if they are not the suspect, they are perhaps deranged and need some help.
But you assumed whoever had done this was on the run, wouldn't be returning to the scene of the second incident dressed in the same clothing as the scene of the third.
That's right. I think the last I had heard, he was seen in the Arboretum or something like that, and so I figured he was on the run.
That would be a logical conclusion, right?
Objection argumentative.
Overruled. So, you said you saw this person staring to the ground. You also recall telling the officer that you saw him staring out into space?
I do recall saying that to the officer. It was just like staring, like not at the ground or not into space would be the correct way of saying it, because it was just a blank stare.
No movement?
No movement initially until we made eye contact.
Okay. So he's staring at nothing, and you're watching him, and initially you don't make eye contact.
Yes.
How long, and don't guess, but how long do you look at him before he looks up and makes eye contact with you?
It's less than 3 seconds.
You were looking directly at him.
Yes.
He's standing right here in this area.
Close to the bench, yes.
Close to the bench. And when he looks up at you, he doesn't say anything to you?
No.
He gets up,
He gets up.
he starts walking toward your direction.
He comes down the stairs he's on, and he starts to descend the stairs that are visible there.
And then you back up.
I backed up. There's a little, it's out of the frame here, but behind that bench, there's a slight elevation. It's a hill between the bike path and the middle path, and so I start to walk up that hill.
Okay, well, I think we can get a photo of that a little bit later.
Sure.
Walk up. And so he walks down and then starts making his way up this hill.
He went, he went through, he might have gone through the playground a little bit, but then there's a hill towards where your cursor is going that he ascended.
Let's go to...
Yep, there you go. Yeah, up that hill, more towards the right of the picture in this case.
So this is Defense Exhibit C11, and it does show the hill he went up, correct? But it's probably, he went up the hill is probably to the right of where this photo is taken.
Yeah, right over here or thereabouts.
So you're gesturing and pointing to the right side of the photo where it cuts off, so he would be further right if you look at this photo.
Yes.
And Defense Exhibit C12, this is another image of the hill.
Yeah, it's exactly like up here. And he was just kind of walking, like not in a straight line or not in a determined way, but just like moving around this hill, around these trees, went over the hill and down into the gully, if you will.
And as he moved, did you walk with him to watch him?
I've followed, yeah. Again, I was keeping a distance, but I didn't want to lose sight of him, especially as he went over the hill. So then I started to go up the hill. Anyways.
Other than that initial eye contact, he never looked at you again.
No,
Never looked back to see if you were watching it.
not in an obvious way. No,
Well,
I didn't see it.
And you are being particularly discreet.
No.
There's some person, you're following a person from a distance,
Yeah.
and the fact that he never looked back at you, did that seem showing you Defense Exhibit C13? Again, does this show the hill he walked over?
That's the hill, yes.
And then when he got back, there's some trees back here, kind of just meandered around.
Yeah, it wasn't very long, but there was no direction to it. There's nowhere to go if you go down over that hill and down into the area near the chain link fence that borders 113. So I was like, okay, this is my thinking was, this is odd. I'm going to keep an eye on him. And then he proceeded to go across the bike path perpendicularly into the other corner, like the very corner of the park.
Okay, I'm gonna this. We'll get to that. This is C14. That's an accurate photo of the
That's the toddler playground, which is on the other. It's the west side of the park, but it's not where he was seated.
That's not where he was. So
Yeah.
we'll just. And here, C15. This is a better shot of the hill.
Yeah, this is now looking north-ish, and so he crossed over that hill.
So he's back here in this area,
Yep.
walking around.
Yeah.
Did he use circles? You said
It's not like obvious geometric circles, but again, just kind of looking at the ground, listlessly going this way or that way. It odd behavior. I'm pretty sure if you have the audio recording of the first call with the police, I referenced it because I think I was on the line with them at the time.
So you're on your phone while you're following this individual,
Yes,
and you never looked at chat.
not that I could determine.
And C16, this is a different angle looking another part of the park. Same with C17, correct?
Yeah,
And then here at C18, this shows, this is a play structure where he was initially seated
yes,
from behind it.
yeah,
And then my cursor, he kind of walked up this hill over here and started meandering around.
yes,
Right. And we'll go back. C19, this is, again, from the play structure facing Sycamore.
yes.
So, let me see if I can find, after he meandered around, he crossed the bike path.
Yeah, that one.
Okay, and
Either picture, but the one you just had, he crossed it right in front of that.
down in this area,
Yeah, there's very limited space there. There's not a lot of like extra room to walk, but he went in that space, which again I thought was odd.
yeah, so there's some trees here where, and let me zoom in. Can you see kind of this, before you cross the bike path, there's some trees and a little bit of a grassy area?
Yeah,
Is that where he walked?
yeah, just in front of where the bridge starts.
Just in front of it? And he actually went down into the grass
Yes,
and kind of wandered around?
yes.
There's not much room.
Not for much time. There's not much space to wander in, but yes.
And where are you watching him when he's kind of wandering in this small area?
I was up here on the hill. You might have to zoom out a little bit.
You're,
Like, yeah, right up there. Again, keeping a safe enough distance, but I wanted to keep my eyes on him.
and so now I'm showing you Defense Exhibit C7. After he was done wandering around prior on the grassy area, prior to after he was wandering around the grassy area, I guess it would be on the north side of the bike path, right before crossing the bridge.
Yes,
And does this photo C7 show where you were standing while you're watching it?
yes. At that point, I had crossed over the playground path and was up here, or thereabouts.
So it's very clear you're standing on a hill with a cell phone watching him, and he doesn't look at you.
Yeah, I wasn't being particularly discreet, to your point. It felt like it was obvious that I was watching him, but I didn't have any indication that he knew that.
And then how long did he meander around in that grass area before he,
Again, only a matter of seconds, 30 seconds tops.
and
Probably
then
fewer.
he went back on the bike path and,
Came back the other way, and I started to back up and come down I was at this point on the hill, but closer to the bike path, kind of using the hill to obfuscate myself. I was trying not to be too obvious, but I would have been easy to spot, I imagine. Yeah,
you were saying to yourself, if this isn't the suspect, I'm a middle-aged man kind of stalking some young kid, right?
yeah. I mean, I was starting to feel like, yeah, this better be him, or else I'm, stalking a kid. Exactly.
And so you're up on the hill. When he walks past you, is he on the path?
Yeah, I think he came like from that corner back down this path and then took the middle path out. And I went more this way, staying up closer to the bike path. But I was on the hill itself, keeping an eye on him. And then I left the park before him because I was again keeping this distance buffer between us. So I left the park and went a little bit north on Sycamore. He came out where the middle path hit Sycamore and walked down towards Willett Elementary. At that point, I believe I was on the phone with my wife, just telling her that I was following him down Sycamore.
back up.
Yeah.
When he crossed the bike path, heading for the middle path, you're up on this hill back here?
I'm on this hill.
Okay, so now you've moved over to this hill as you
Yeah.
cross.
I'm keeping a distance from him the entire time. So as he started to head back eastward, I also went eastward.
And his face, as he was walking, if he just looked to his left, he would have seen you standing there.
Yeah, it would.
He never looked at you.
He didn't.
He was staring straight ahead.
I believe so. I mean, I was obviously, my adrenaline was pumping, and I was on the phone with, at first, the police and then my wife. So I wasn't watching his head the entire time, but I didn't have the feeling that he was obviously aware of my presence.
Were you close enough that he could have heard you speaking on the phone?
Objection, speculation.
If you know.
Possibly, yeah. I wasn't whispering or anything.
Let me go forward. Okay, I'm showing now C19.
Yeah.
So on the left corner, that is the middle path now that he would take when he's walking back toward Sycamore.
Yes.
And you are on the hill between the bike path and the middle path above him.
Yes.
And you're watching him as
Yeah.
he walks.
That's right.
And again, as he's walking through Sycamore Park, he never looks at you at all.
No.
He never acknowledges you.
No, not once. That's what kept me believing that maybe he didn't know I was there, and that's why I started to try to be more discreet as I tailed him through the neighborhood.
But knowing what had just happened, it seemed possible that you just didn't notice a middle-aged man with a cell phone falling around the park.
It seemed possible. He gave no obvious indication that he knew I was there or that I was pursuing him.
You saw nothing that would cause you to believe he knew,
No.
but you thought he has to know because
His pace changed occasionally. Like sometimes he would be shuffling, sometimes he'd be like fast walking, but it wasn't obvious he was fleeing me or anything like that.
never ran.
No.
And sometimes you said his feet would shuffle.
Well, when he would get to an intersection, like at Bucknell and Sycamore, he would kind of like, it seemed like he was unsure which way he was going. Like initially, I thought he was going to go farther down Sycamore, and then he doubled back and went down Bucknell. So shuffling to an extent, yeah.
So you believe you called 911 3 times?
I recall 3 times, once in the park, once on Pine heading northward, and then once as he was leaving Safeway from the marketplace, and then heading across, back down Sycamore.
So your initial call was to 911,
I believe, yes. I mean, all of my calls to the police were via 911. Yeah.
but you also called your wife.
My wife and also our neighbor.
So I'd like, there's a stipulation here, the defense exhibit D.
Go ahead.
Sir, do you recognize this exhibit, what it depicts?
Yeah, that's a larger aerial view of the area of Central Davis, North Central.
And there's a red location marker.
Yes.
At Sycamore Park.
That is, yes.
And from this aerial satellite view, you can see the bike path on Sycamore Park.
Yeah,
You can see, it's partially blocked by the red marker. You can see the middle path through Sycamore Park.
yes.
You can also see the path around the place area in Sycamore Park.
Yes.
So I'm just going to go step by step and follow his
Sure.
route.
Just a moment. We gotta take the blinds down. Sorry. My least favorite moment of the day when the blinds come down. It's too much of a glare. Okay, thank you, Deputy. All right, Mr. Hutchinson, go ahead.
When he got to Sycamore Park, is that one of the times where he shuffled around when he got to Sycamore Lane? Did he kind of shuffle around before deciding which way to go?
Yes, he wasn't like clear. There was no direction to it, so I thought he was going to come north on Sycamore towards me, and then he didn't. He went south, stayed on the west side of Sycamore, again walking right next to Willett Elementary School, and then stopped there. I started to go down Sycamore.
Stop. So he
Yeah.
walked on the left side of Sycamore on the sidewalk bordering Robert Willett Elementary School.
Left from this perspective, yes.
So it would be I meant
The
west side.
the west side, exactly.
Then
You've got your corner if you need it.
Sure.
what did he do when he reached the intersection of Sycamore and Bucknell?
He was right there. He started to head south on Sycamore, and then he turned back, doubled back, and went at that point east on Bucknell.
But even while he was turning around, he never looked at you.
No, not that I could detect.
And he then started walking east on Bucknell.
Yes.
He got to the intersection of Bucknell and Pine.
And then he did something similar where he turned, started to head south down Pine, just for a step or two, and then doubled back and went north on Pine. Not doubled back to Bucknell, but like started to go, down Pine and then doubled back, went up here, did the same thing again, starting to go,
We're going to go
sure, step by step.
Step by step. So he started to go a few steps on Pine South, but then he started going north on Pine.
Yes.
And when he is at the intersection of Bucknell and Pine, where are you?
I was closer to the intersection of Bucknell and Sycamore. So again, at this point, I was almost a block away, or I was keeping more distance. So then I observed him do that double back and then head north. And then as he headed north, I kind of sprinted down Bucknell so that I wouldn't lose sight of him, at which point I saw him here.
Okay, let's stop.
Sure.
We're going to go
We'll go.
step by step.
Got it.
Before he headed north on Pine, you never saw him look at you. Turn
Yeah,
back,
I didn't see him look at me the entire time.
All right. So you observed him walk north on Pine. Did he cross Colby?
He went across Colby, yes.
Okay, so he went across Colby, then he came to the intersection of Villanova and Pine.
Yes.
Did you notice anything?
It was the same behavior. He started to head east on Villanova and then changed his mind, went west.
So he's now we're now on the third intersection. First we had Bucknell and Sycamore, then Bucknell and Pine. Now we're at Pine and Villanova.
Yes.
And all three intersections, he does this little thing where he starts to go one way and then turns the other.
Uh-huh. Yes.
He then walks west on Villanova.
Yeah.
He gets to the intersection of Villanova and Sycamore.
Yes. At that point, I did not see him. I think he maybe had picked up his pace. I don't know. I was coming up Pine, and this is when I had called my neighbor who lives on Colby and asked her to get in her car and head north on Sycamore to not lose sight of him.
Let me stop you there. When you were coming up on Pine, you called. You were calling your neighbor, right?
Yeah.
So when you got to the intersection of Pine and Villanova, you didn't see him at that
He was out of sight at that point.
So you said he picked up his pace. That was a possibility because you didn't see him.
True, yeah. I also could have been, I'm not the fastest guy.
Well, you were also on Pine, you were trying to call your neighbor as well.
Yeah, I was trying to coordinate a response.
But by the time you got down to Villanova and Sycamore, you looked north, you could see him walking on Sycamore.
By the time I got to Sycamore, I could see him. He had created even more distance at that point. So then I was like basically openly running at that point to try to not lose sight of him.
But he was still walking along Sycamore when you saw him.
Yeah, he crossed Sycamore. There's no intersection or crosswalk. He just walked across the street. And so he was on the west side and I was on the east side.
How long approximately do you think you lost sight of him when you were on Pineville? So when you got to Pine Villanova, obviously you didn't see him.
Sure.
If you can give an estimate, how long did it
It was
go
less
until you saw him again? How many seconds?
less than a minute, 45 seconds or so. Again, I ran down Villanova this way, and at that point he was on the west side of Sycamore and had some distance between us.
And you ran down Villanova because you wanted to make sure you could see where he went.
Yeah, I had talked to the neighbor. I think she maybe called me back or I called her again, and she said like she had driven by. It's definitely him. I'm not crazy. Stay in pursuit. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. My neighbor confirmed it. I'm gonna follow this guy and be very obvious about it. At that point, I didn't care. I just didn't want to lose sight of him. So then I ran up Sycamore.
And the reason you ran because you knew if in that 45 seconds to get out of sight, if he knew you were out of sight, he could have taken off sprinting, he could have hid somewhere, and you might not have seen it, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously, he had no idea you called a neighbor.
No.
But when you got to Sycamore and Villanova and looked north, you could still see him just walking along the sidewalk heading north.
He was heading north.
And you followed him as he headed north on Sycamore?
Yes.
On the other side of the road?
I was on the other side, but I could see him, yeah.
And during the entire time that he walked up Sycamore north, he never looked over his shoulder at all.
I did not see that happening, no.
When you got to the intersection of Sycamore and West Covell, you believe he may have crossed with not at the stoplight?
I believe he didn't wait for the signal. He just crossed.
So he crossed against the red?
Yeah, and I was on the other side. I got to the intersection and I waited for the pedestrian signal.
Did he, you know how some people will sprint across the red, or did he just walk straight across the street?
He wasn't sprinting, just walking.
You were then able to see him cross through the marketplace?
I lost him at that point because I waited at the intersection, and when I got to the marketplace parking lot, it was late afternoon and there were a lot of cars. I didn't see him. I ran into CVS just thinking like maybe he would be in there.
Thought at this point, because you had to wait, you thought you lost him.
Yeah, I called my wife back and said disappointedly, sorry, I lost him.
Because that's a big parking complex. I mean,
It's a big parking lot, exactly.
Multiple stores.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Hudson, can you pull that mic a little closer? Thanks.
And so when you ran into CVS, that was your best guess of where he might have been because of his, or was that just
It's the first store. It's the most proximate one, so I ran into it thinking if he's trying to hide from me, that would be an okay place to do it. There's a lot of aisles, but he wasn't in there.
You ran up and down the aisles looking for him.
Yeah.
And you didn't see him.
No, I saw my neighbor, but I didn't see him.
And at this point, no police officer has arrived yet.
No.
Is that starting to frustrate you?
I was frustrated.
So when you exit CVS, at that moment you think, I've lost him.
Yes.
And then he walks right in front of you.
Again, with 20 to 30 feet of distance and not looking at me, but yes, just walking by.
And he just was walking.
From the direction of Safeway. So I actually assumed he went into Safeway. I don't know for a fact.
He was walking from the direction of Safeway.
Yeah.
And he never looked at you.
Nope.
But he was carrying a bag at this point.
Yes.
Then you continued to follow him.
Yes. I called the police again, told them I had regained sight of him and that I was going to not let up until they sent a car.
Did you observe him cross West Covell again to go back down Sycamore?
Yes.
Do you know if he crossed on a red or a green this time, or do you know?
I don't remember. I might have even crossed on a red at that point. I didn't care.
You didn't want to lose him again.
Exactly.
And as he traveled south down Sycamore, he just continued to just walk.
He continued. I ran into the street and waved down a car of two women and said, like, I think this is the guy. Can you help me keep an eye on him until the police come? And they pulled over and agreed and started to follow him. And we all, we had like a trailing party at that point going down Sycamore South. Exactly. And then...
So let's talk about this trailing party.
Sure.
So Davis police still haven't arrived,
Yes.
but you have now your neighbor
Yes.
and some random person?
Yes, some women that were driving the other way that pulled over when I flagged them down.
So you have three different groups of people from the community following him, and he never looks back,
Yeah,
just keeps walking.
just keeps walking.
Then
And not running, to be clear. Just like maybe fast walking at best, but not obviously running or anything like that.
and finally you see a patrol vehicle.
Yeah, he turns down Villanova, and I am running at that point. I turned down Villanova, and then a police officer was heading west on Villanova. I ran into the street, flagged him down, pointed at the suspect, and said, "That's him."
And did you observe for any time when the police officers contacted him?
Yeah, no, I watched the entire time. The squad car turned around, got out. The police officer got out, started to follow him on foot, calling after him. The suspect continued to walk, maybe at a more brisk pace at that point, and then go down Pine, south on Pine. And then it was at that point, I believe the officer went back to his car and like radioed in support, and then all of a sudden there were a bunch of squad cars and a helicopter and the whole thing.
Did you see, so you saw him turn on Villanova, or?
I saw him turn to head east on Villanova, yes, and I saw him further turn again south on Pine.
And there was an officer walking behind him on Pine?
On Villanova.
And then at the intersection of Pine and Colby, you saw him standing speaking to a different officer.
Another car came and they apprehended him and held him on like a lawn at the corner of Pine and Colby, yeah.
And you watched this entire incident?
Yeah, I was at that point standing on Pine.
And that multiple patrol cars started arriving.
A lot of patrol cars, helicopter, everything.
And helicopter was hovering overhead.
Yeah.
And you could see him standing on a corner surrounded by multiple police officers.
Yes.
Did you see when they put him in handcuffs?
No. In fact, they told us at some point, like, I think there was too much attention from the neighborhood, and they said, "Oh, it's not him, everyone can go home," sort of thing. And I was like, really?
So they told you, after all that work you put in, they told you it wasn't?
I think they were trying to just get people to go back inside and not cause a scene. So yeah, that is what they told us.
And you laughed at that point?
I gave a testimony to police, and then a reporter from the Davis Enterprise was there. I spoke to her on the under the auspices of anonymity.
That didn't work out too well.
Oh, it did for a couple of years.
Okay. But a couple of years, you actually, though, you followed this case in the media?
I haven't paid too much attention. My wife gives me updates now and again.
But you actually reached out, you sent me an email because you wanted to let me know that you thought you had important information about this case.
A friend of mine who writes for the San Francisco Chronicle had heard about the case and brought it up and knew about my involvement and said, you can like reach out to the public defender. And I said, okay, if there's something useful to share.
Because thinking about that behavior you saw, it didn't seem normal to you.
No, it was odd, erratic, just not the conduct of someone who's thinking clearly if they're being pursued by somebody.
involves, well, would you agree it was really strange behavior what you saw?
Yes.
Nothing further, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hutchinson, and Mr. DeMar, any redirect?
Mr. Schaefer, when you were in Sycamore Park on May 3rd, you knew where the second stabbing, where Kareem had been stabbed to death, where that had taken place.
I didn't know exactly where it was. I was out of town actually the night that it occurred, and so I knew it was in Sycamore Park, but I didn't know where precisely.
When you were following Mr. Dominguez through the park, did you see like a makeshift memorial that had flowers and things like that?
I didn't spot it at the time. I was pretty focused on him, and I only briefly went past that area as we were exiting the park. But again, my focus was on his whereabouts, not on my surroundings.
But today, as you sit here, you know the area where Kareem was killed.
Yes.
And if you bring up the defense exhibit 19, I believe it's C2. And so, looking at defense 19 C2, are you familiar with this is where Kareem was found and killed?
Yeah, to the right there, that lighter spot of cement is where the memorial is.
Now, when you were following Mr. Dominguez around, did he ever come into this area?
No.
Did he ever approach the area and change his direction?
This area, no.
And so, as you were following him, it seems like he went to a lot of different areas in the park.
Section leading.
He went to a lot of different areas in the park, the playground, the hill, some of the paths. Would it be fair to say that he covered a fairly significant, based on your diagram, area of the park?
It's a big park, so fairly significant is a fairly significant term, but he went, the way you described, the playground, the path, the area by the bike path, by the bike bridge rather, and then back through the middle path.
But he never came down this path directly.
No.
In fact, he went on the other side of the hill on that path.
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, thank you, counsel. Any recross?
Yeah, sir, when you went into the park, you never went down the bike path initially, correct?
The first time heading westbound, no.
And when you were coming back, had you not seen Mr. Carlos Dominguez, you were going to return through the middle path.
Yeah,
You were not going to take the bike path.
that's right.
The only reason you were even close to the bike path was because you were up on the hill watching Mr. Carlos Dominguez.
Trying to maintain line of sight, yeah.
So the entire time you were in that park, you yourself never walked on the bike path near the area where Kareem was killed.
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Schaefer, I appreciate your testimony and coming back in the afternoon. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.